Hello and welcome to week 8 of our Blackbird Oracle read along. We are looking at chapters 21 through 25 in this installment, and I'm actually going to do 2 little videos. So I'm going to do this one first, and we'll put up another one as well. One of the things that happens in this book, and in these chapters more specifically, is we dive into the legacy of some of the most infamous events of the early modern period. Early modern is a period, you may not have heard of this before, it goes basically from 1450 to about 1700, right? And during that time, there were witch hunts and executions all over the European world, in the colonies of European countries, as well as back in, the quote unquote old world and new world. The Salem trials, which are what we really focus on because of the connection to Diana's family history, were one of the last examples of the witch trials. I think a lot of people think, like witch trials, oh, that was the Spanish Inquisition and it's medieval. Actually, the Spanish Inquisition is not medieval, it's early modern, and it was an ecclesiastical court, right? So if you were found guilty of witchcraft in a country that was Catholic and followed Catholic Church doctrine, witchcraft was deemed a heresy, which is a religious crime against God, and you were executed, and in many cases they felt that a community could be tainted by association, and therefore the safest thing to do with a witch was to burn the witch, because then it literally vaporized their essence, right? That's not what's going on in Salem. One of my pet peeves as a historian is having people tell me about the witches who were burned at Salem. Well, first of all, Massachusetts was Puritan, not Catholic. It was the antithesis of Catholic. So no heresy, no burnings. So you might wonder, okay, so what's going on in England and the English colonies? Well, in England, witchcraft was a felony. It was a form of treason because the king was head of the church. And so if you violated the natural order of things by going against God and his or her representative here on earth, then what you were charged with was a felony. That's like murder, okay? So in a weird way, you were committing murder. You were going against God, you were in league with the devil, and you were actually subverting the order of things. So in North America, anywhere that the English settled, and in England, witches were put to death for the felony of witchcraft by the traditional execution for felons, which is hanging. Also, witches are not hung, they're hanged. Mary Beth Norton, thank you very much, an expert on Salem witches, highly recommend her. Is always having to correct me on this because I do slip and say hung. But really, witches are hanged, and they're hanged because they are guilty as felons. Now, interestingly, felons are not entitled to take part in political processes. They are not entitled to own property. So even if you were accused and convicted of the felony of witchcraft and they just hadn't gotten you to the gallows yet in Salem, you were, to all intents and purposes, a dead woman walking. You couldn't own property, you couldn't bequeath property. It was a death sentence whether you were alive or dead, okay? Actually, there's a big move to get people pardoned for this reason. It's because in these families, they were losing everything because someone had been accused of witchcraft, had been found guilty on the flimsiest of evidence. They hadn't yet been executed, and yet they were still, to all intents and purposes, legally dead. If you want to go into the wonderful world of witchcraft trials, and I highly recommend it. I mean, you all probably have some curiosity. There is nothing better than going to the actual trial documents. Now, you're not going to feel that this clarifies anything, all right? Because they're such a mess. But for example, here's a book of trial transcripts. Look how thick it is. This is for our very own Isabel Gowdy's trial. And it is so voluminous and thick because at her trial in 1662, 30 years before Salem, when they said you have to confess, she just went into the most elaborate confession. Like they said, did you dance with the devil? Oh yes, we danced to these songs on these days. I wore my best dress. So-and-so was with me. She really went for it. I love Isabel Gowdy. It's why Janet Gowdy is her descendant. And if you want Salem, there's a wonderful collection. Notice how thin this one is. A brief collection of primary source documents with commentary that will help you to make your way through them. All of the Salem trial records are online, both in transcripts and images at the University of Virginia. And if this is just too overwhelming, there's lots and lots of books that have been written about Salem and the witch hunts. Start with Mary Beth Norton's work. Articles or books, Mary Beth Norton has a view of what was happening that I have so much respect for, and it's just deeply learned and incredibly sensitive to the issues of power and misogyny that were really at the heart of the trials. All right, I'll see you next time. I'm going to actually do another video for this week now because I want to talk about memory bottles a little. So look for that soon.